Okay, it's that time. We'll now go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Owasso City Council. Item number 2 is an invocation from Reverend Scott Mitchell from Community Formation of Trinity Presbyterian Church, followed by a flag salute by Counselor Kelly Lewis.
Friends, let us pray. Almighty God, as we come to you this evening, we acknowledge our great need for your wisdom and your insight. We pray for our mayor, our city councilors, our police chief, all the way down to those who work in the parks as maintenance crew and the janitors and everyone in between. We ask that you would give us wisdom. We ask that Owasso would be a place of equity and justice. We ask that we would, as a city, promote righteousness in all of its forms. And we know that it is you who has appointed governing authorities, and that all authority given to anyone in this town has come from you. And therefore we submit to you and bow our knee to you as King, and ask that you would be with these men and women this evening as important decisions are made about our city. We submit this to you and ask that you would continue to make Owasso a great city for the sake of its residents and for the sake of your kingdom. Through Jesus we pray.
Thank you, Reverend Mitchell. Thank you, Counselor Lewis. Item number 4 is roll call.
Mayor Chris Kelly.
Here.
Vice Mayor Bill Bush.
Here.
Counselor Doug Bonebrake.
Here.
Counselor Lyndall Dunn.
Here.
Counselor Kelly Lewis. Here.
Item number 5 is election of mayor. For anybody that's been watching, we were supposed to elect a new mayor and vice mayor the first meeting of May. It was thought at the time that due to the level of involvement I had dealing with the COVID issue, based on the fact at that point, if you remember, most of the weight of the decision-making fell on the council and the city at that point in time. And frankly, I was doing more than I'd ever done in my role as mayor at that time. So we continued that continuity. Of course, COVID is not gone. It's still here. In some ways, it may be even a little bit worse right now. But the amount of work that falls upon this council and the position of mayor has decreased dramatically since the governor took over and has been making decisions. So I said at the time, as soon as that effort was no longer needed by me, that we'd call for a new election of mayor and vice mayor and get the next in line up. So with that being said, it's been the honor of a lifetime, to be the mayor of the city you raise your kids in and start a business in and plan on living in for the rest of your life. Hard to beat that. We got great people that are ready to move up and take the spot. So with that, I would like to make a motion to nominate Vice Mayor Bill Bush as mayor and chair of the authorities.
Second.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
Mr. Bonebrake.
Yes.
Ms. Lewis. Yes. Mr. Bush.
Yes.
I guess I'll take over from this
Your
point
turn.
forward, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Dunn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, thank you, and I know what you're talking about as far as being an honorable position. I'm looking forward to serving as mayor, and also the same with you. We decided that I would stay on as vice mayor until this COVID thing, until we did this month. And so with that, I would like to nominate Councilor Lewis as vice mayor.
Second.
Mr. Bush.
Yes.
Mr. Dunn.
Yes.
Mr. Bonebrake.
Yes.
Ms. Kelly. Or
Yes.
Ms. Lewis, I'm sorry. Mr. Kelly.
really know which way to go there. Is it on me now?
Yes, Mr.
Yes.
Kelly.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mayor Lewis. Item number 7 is consideration and appropriate action relating to a request for approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Mr. Bumbright,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Yes. Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 9 is consideration and appropriate action relating to the ordinance 1167 for the annexation OA 2002 of approximately 4 acres located on the northeast corner of East 76th Street North and 120 North, 129th East Avenue, and the rezoning OZ 2002 of said property from residential single-family estate to commercial shopping and car fishing. Present this item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Seem to be having some issues with the advancement. Switch it on again. See what's happening. There we go. Gotta stand over this way. Thank you. This item is concerning Ordinance 1167. It involves an annexation and a rezoning case, specifically lots 7 and 8, Block 4, Graceland Acres. Some of the key statistics regarding this case: it's a 4-acre site at the intersection of East 76th Street North and North 129th East Avenue. It involves lots 7 and 8, Block 4 of Graceland Acres. Property is currently zoned RE, or residential single family, and that is in Tulsa County. They are seeking a zoning change with this annexation to CS, or commercial shopping, via the concurrent rezoning request OZ 20-02. Now, the land use plan does identify this property for commercial uses, which you'll see in a moment. The site is what's considered an emerging commercial node in the community. There's improvements taking place right now with 76th Street North. 129th East Avenue was widened several years ago. As Stone Canyon continues to grow, this area is seeing more and more traffic being pushed through it. So it's not surprising to see this type of thing take place on this corner. The applicant did successfully obtain the necessary signatures to release the private covenant that was part of this development. And it restricted the subject lots to residential uses only. Graceland Acres was platted many years ago. I believe it may have been the late 50s or early 60s. The water provider on this property would be the City of Owasso. Sanitary sewer service would also be provided by the City of Owasso. This is an aerial photograph showing the location of this property. As you can see, it does sit on the hard corner of 76th Street North and 129th. North 129th East Avenue. A couple new developments have come in the recent years. This is a safe lock mini storage here. This was a PUD that was done about 4 years ago. They did, as part of this PUD, reserve this area up front for commercial uses. It has not developed yet, but that is reserved for commercial type uses. There's a kinder care that's located here, child care center. And then off at this corner here, interestingly, the same developer who is bringing forth this application actually developed this property a little bit further to the west. It sits at the corner of the Double Oak subdivision at this location here. This is a zoning map showing the location of the property. Again, it is zone RE, residential estates in Tulsa County. Surrounding it, some different zonings do take place. There's RS3 to the north, to the west, and CS zoning to the west as well. And to the southwest is agricultural zoning, but that's part of the Baptist Village retirement community. And then directly to the south is commercial shopping. So it is in keeping with the basic trends that are actually occurring in this area. This is the land use master plan. Depicts again this property for commercial uses. The red you can see does call out for commercial uses in this location. And looking back at previous land use master plans, we did have a few conversations with some citizens regarding the land use master plan on this property. So we did a little research and we discovered that even going back to the 1978 plan, that corner in some form had been called out for commercial type uses. The Planning Commission did hear this item at their June 8th meeting, and they voted 3-0 to recommend approval of both OA 20-02 and OZ 20-02. I would say that Commissioner Miller did recuse himself from the vote because of a personal relationship with the applicant. Both applicants are, well, the applicant and his representation is here in the office or in the chambers this evening, and they may wish to speak on this item. The staff would recommend adoption of Ordinance 1167, affirming the annexation request OA 20-02 and the associated rezoning request OZ 20-02. With that, I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Others anyone signed to speak on this item?
Yes, sir. Rachel Doherty is recognized to speak for 3 minutes.
I'm a resident of 12912 East 77th Street North. I'm the daughter of Elizabeth Doherty and Charles Doherty, the homeowners. I'm speaking on behalf of Elizabeth, my mother, today. She's asked me to speak these words for her. Hello, my name is Elizabeth Doherty, and I spoke at June 8th's Planning Commission meeting regarding this agenda item. I'm here again to voice my absolute disapproval of this rezoning and development. To remind you, I'm a homeowner directly behind this area in Copper Meadows, one of 4 homes directly behind this area that's going to be rezoned. I spoke last week to the Planning Commission, and I feel like my concerns, my voice fell on deaf ears. I will not reiterate the many points I made at last week's meeting as to why, for myself, my family, and my home, this eventual development is extremely detrimental. I told the Commission how this would negatively affect my privacy, my property value, the inheritance of this home to my children one day, and my quality of life. I'm not going to argue with the personal morals of the Commission, let alone the profound lack of professional responsibility to the community it serves in its immediate dismissal of mine and my neighbors' concerns. In replying to what was said in the last meeting in response to our many concerns for our privacy, home value, and home maintenance, I will summarize just what was said by the Commission in response to the multiple members of the community opposing this development. I feel it's critical because not only are these minutes not yet published, but because this conversation was extremely important to us. I feel it's critical for the City Council to understand just how much the Planning Commission dismissed the many growing concerns of our neighbors. It's worth noting that not one member of the community voiced in favor of the development, with the exception of the developer himself. In responding to these comments made by the Commission, I'm speaking largely to the Commission itself as well as the City Council before me. First, nearly all of the Commission said in response to all of our concerns, we cannot predict the future. To that I ask then, what exactly is its service to this community as the Owasso Planning Commission, part of the Community Development Department? Do you understand how this comment that they cannot predict the future undermines their position in our disagreement? You say that this development is part of the city master plan as a goal for the city and has been part of the plan since, in their exact terms, 1976. Were you not listening when your commission predecessor, Mr. Ames, our next door neighbor and a concerned citizen who brought forth issues that this might arise for our neighborhood, disagreed that the fact that this was supposed to happen since 1976? If you cannot predict the future, then why does this master plan take precedence over current and active community disapproval? If you cannot, as you say, predict the future, then I question why this commercial rezoning passed without much consideration to our concerns when we, residents of the area for over 60 years collectively, emphasize how we know this will affect our future. Your rezoning directly influences the future you claim to be unable to predict. I've also provided you photos of the buffer zone that was discussed at the meeting last week, and that buffer zone is at 76th and 129th behind that strip mall. And we were told multiple times that this was the strict buffer zone that was going to do all of our homes just perfectly fine when this new development's put in. But I show you here where it's merely the homeowner fence and about 12 feet of space. And that concerns us greatly for the privacy of our homes, as the back of our home is entirely bedrooms for our kids and grandkids. So that is considered a possibility for privacy invasion for us. Further, the Commission's dismissal and my neighbor's concern over the immoral bribing that the developer states is repayment for notary services is suspicious at best and abhorrent at its worst. If this money is indeed for notary services, then why did some neighbors get $100 and others were offered $1,000, as brought up by Paula and Terry, our southeast neighbors? They were offered $1,000 versus the $100 that was a confirmed amount from the developer themselves for the people that live further down 129th than us. So that's concerning, because if these people that are further down 129th are the ones signing these signatures to release the land from its covenants, what does that mean for us that are actually really close to this land, as we weren't offered any money? No one came to our door to ask for our signature. That should say something about the fact that they knew they weren't going to get our signature because this is a problematic development. Further, I must ask you to reconsider both the commission as well as the city council if they should choose to confirm this. Consider where your priorities lie. To the developers strategically circumventing the direct neighbors of this land and their plans to change it for their gain, or the members of its community, the neighbors and families that these city members are supposed to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Any from the council? Did you say there's anybody else trying to speak?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who's up?
Carrie Marquette is recognized to speak for 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Fine. Anyone else?
Lou Reynolds is recognized to speak for 3 minutes.
Mayors, members of the council, I'm Lou Reynolds. My address is 2727 East 21st Street. I represent the applicant, Steve Bournier, and we've worked on this project for about a year and a half now to get it ready for development. As Mr. Fritchen, your planner, said, Carl, would you put up your comprehensive plan, please? Thank you. This property's been planned through your latest iteration of your land use plan for commercial property. For commercial use, the city widened 129th Street and put its investment there. The city's investing its money in East 76th Street now in widening that. Those investments in its infrastructure and its money, that's consistent with this comprehensive plan and this zoning application. The one issue that needed to be resolved from a title issue was there were some restrictive covenants in those subdivisions. Subdivision's older than I am, and I'm in my 60s, and they obtained the number of signatures that they needed and got those covenants released from this property so that it could be used lawfully for commercial purposes. We've asked to annex it into the city of Owasso and zone it CS in accordance with your plan. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Anyone else signed up on it?
No, sir.
Questions?
I know we're just analyzing the annexation and the zoning change, Carl, but I was going to ask, as far as the next step, if this is passed, will there be any controls the city has over how this property is developed?
Yes, sir. You'll have control through your zoning code, the technical terms of that. And Owasso, interestingly, has. Oh, excuse me. All right. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
I was going to let you continue.
Yes, to answer your question, the next step in this process, once the annexation and zoning would be complete, would be to plat this property. It would probably involve a replat of those two particular lots in the subdivision. That would establish all your easements, points of access, that sort of thing, and detention requirements. Then after that, they come in with a site plan, and with our zoning code, there are very strict requirements with buffering, particularly landscape buffering against commercial with residential. So I think the lady had referred to the development across the street with the narrow back lot and the lack of a lot of vegetation. Well, that's totally changed now. You can't do that anymore. That code that was done with that particular site is an older code, and they would have to apply to the current code right now.
That answers my second question. Thanks.
Carl, can you, obviously we run into this situation a lot where we've got a developer that, you know, does everything the right way, follows the laws, and has a right to develop on a piece of property, you know, based on those laws that they follow. Can you speak to kind of not just this situation, many of these situations we've had in the past where we have development that happens next to a neighborhood, in how if the person that owns the property follows those protocols, there's us as a city or as a council has to have a very compelling reason to step in and disallow that. Because the business owner, the property owner has rights as well. So can you speak to that a little bit, how that process kind of happens?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, the community development department does not set policy or the ordinances. We follow those, and we make sure that a developer or interested property owner follows whatever rules, regulations, ordinances, design criteria, and so on the city council adopts are followed. The comprehensive plan is a blueprint for the community that basically guides the community and development, and it provides predictability for everybody. So not just the developer, but any adjoining property owner. This document's free to use, it's easy, it's available, it's online, and it can be utilized to at least ascertain what might happen or might not happen in the future near your property. So
I more wanted that answer for the young lady that spoke, just because we hear this a lot, we deal with this a lot, and sometimes the process is kind of hard to understand. You know, that both sides have rights, and we don't have a lot of power to make a lot of changes in that situation if everything's done the right way. Essentially, what I would say.
Julie, it's more or less a legal issue too, as far as property owner wanting to develop it. It's hard to step in and do that, right, from the state law standpoint.
To substitute your judgment for that of the property owner, yes, the property owner does have broad rights to develop their property as they see fit.
Carl, what can you address the discrepancy that was talked about as far as $1,000 to $100?
I can defer to Julie, but I'd really rather not do that. The city was not party to those transactions, so it was in the county when this release took place, and we told them for us to even hear an annexation case, they needed to take care of that issue.
Move we approve. Second.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Bunbury?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 10. Item number 10 is consideration of appropriate action related to ordinance 1168 for planned unit development of approximately 8.722 acres located north and west of East 116th Street North and North 126th East Avenue intersection, and the rezoning OZ 2001 of said property from agriculture AG to residential multifamily RM and commercial shopping CS. Carpets will present this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, members of council. This involves ordinance 1168, specifically OPUD 20-01 and zoning case OZ 20-01, called the Owasso Assisted Living Center. Some key statistics on this property: it's an 8.722 acre site. It's located at 12525 East 116th Street North, which is a little bit to the west of 129th East Avenue and 116th Street North. The applicant, as part of this PUD, is proposing two different development areas associated with it. There would be a development area A, which is a 2.98 acre southern tract or portion, and the northern portion is denoted as development area B. This is a 5.743 acre northern portion of the property, and in development area B is where they're proposing to put the assisted living facility. The property, it was annexed as agriculture under Ordinance 1166 in May of this year. They are seeking a underlying zoning of CS on the southern portion of the property and RM zoning on the northern portion of the property, again to accommodate the assisted living center with the PUD overlay. The applicant plans, as I mentioned, to operate an assisted living facility on the northern portion of the property while maintaining the current home on the southern portion for an administrative office until such time as it redevelops. The land use plan does call out the entire tract for commercial uses as a preferred highest intensity, considering that the northern part of this property would be a lower intensity as the assisted living center. It is appropriate and would meet the intent of the land use plan in this location. Water provider on the property would be Washington County Rural Number 3. Sanitary sewer service would be provided by the city of Owasso. There would be no new platted public streets associated with this project. The project would be limited to 3 access points. 2 would occur off of North 126th East Avenue. That would directly service the assisted living facility. And 1 would be proposed to be permitted on 116th Street North. The PUD document does include cross-access language to be incorporated into the final plat, and that would occur if the individual tracts, which would occur as a result of a lot split situation, which at some point would likely happen to split off the commercial section of the property from the RM section to create 2 independent lots. The PUD does allow for 95 rooms as per the RM zoning, the allowance for the density. However, the applicant states only 83 will actually be developed with the facility. This map here is an aerial map showing the location of the property. Again, it sits a little to the west of the intersection of 116th Street North and 129th East Avenue. And this location here is a similar type facility, albeit it's 2 stories. This is the Prairie Village Assisted Living Center here. Across the street's a new financial institution. The Ace Hardware is located immediately to the south of this building, and then the Walmart neighborhood market is off of this corner here. So we're talking about a little bit further to the west of this kind of node here where the commercial activity is occurring. And this shows the split between the 2 uses. RM would occur on the northern half and CS on the southern half. Oops. This is the zoning of the property and surrounding properties. It is zoned presently AG. The properties surrounding it are zoned AGR in Tulsa County, which is agricultural residential. And that's pretty much surrounding the entire property. Again, as you move further to the east, the commercial node, you'll see the CS uses and then the RM zone use, which is the Prairie Village facility at the hard corner intersection. Land use master plan, as I mentioned, does call out this property as commercial, as a preferred highest intensity use for this location. So the proposed use on the property is consistent with the land use plan and what it's calling out for this area. This is a concept plan that has been provided to the city by the applicant. You can see the 2 development areas located here. That's development area A, and that would be denoted as CS, or commercial shopping. Northern portion would be denoted with the RM zoning. And you can see the facility would occur here in this location with the 2 parking wings on the north and then on the south side of the property. Access point here into the northern section of the assisted living facility. There would be another access point located here. We have asked, and they have included language in their document, that this would, once this opens up and this develops, this would function as a cross access between these 2 lots. So basically mutual access, so that we're not introducing another curb cut on 126th East Avenue, which is more of a county type road that goes further back into this these larger rural subdivision lots. And then another access point would be permitted along the frontage on 116th Street North at this location. This will essentially function as a right-in, right-out because it's proposed to be a median through this area once this all gets widened and redeveloped on 116th Street. So full access would occur here. Again, this would be a right-in, right-out at this location. We've also asked that they included documentation in the PUD which they have, which would allow cross-access between this lot and this lot in the future, should it ever develop at a similar intensity like commercial or office. If it were residential, we probably would not want such an access, but should it develop as something similar to this, then I think that would be advantageous to have this type of cross-access in this location. I would also mention in their document, they have restricted out. This is directly an excerpt from their document. They've restricted out certain types of uses that would be allowed in the CS zoned area. Those include gambling industries, automotive dealers, commercial campground, other motor vehicle dealers such as boats and RVs, veterinary clinic with outside kennel and boarding, and those uses classified as sexually oriented within the City of Owasso zoning code, marijuana growing, processing, or sales. Planning Commission did hear this item. They voted 4-0 to recommend approval of OPUD 20-01 and OZ 20-01 at the regular meeting on June 8th, 2020. I will say that the applicant also did mail out the concept plan that I showed you momentarily ago to the adjoining neighbors. They did receive a few calls and on the plan, and they responded accordingly to those concerns that were expressed by the neighbors. We had a few people that spoke at the Planning Commission, but overall it went smoothly, and we have not heard anything else really in a couple of weeks. With that, staff would recommend adoption of Ordinance 1168, affirming OPUD 20-01 and the concurrent rezoning request OZ 20-01. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those, and I do know that the applicant is here in the audience to address any more technical issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Heather, is anyone signed to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Comments, questions from the council?
We commented, you went over this pretty well with us last week at the work session, and there was even more detail this week. I appreciate you noting the potential for the connection between area A and B, and as well as the possibility of development to the west, and trying to keep all those connections tight like that. I guess the one thing on the right in, right out, so there's currently obviously a turn in there. Are we thinking that that's going to be the placement of the right in, right out, or will it be further down to the west? Do you know?
Yeah, at this point in time, what you have before you there is more of a conceptual plan, obviously, but they're in the process of actually going through the platting of this property and engineering the site. I think that the access point is still not firm, but no matter what, they're going to be allowed one along that frontage.
If it is right there, does that fit within our guidelines for curb cuts down on an artery like that?
It would have to be 150 feet from the intersection of 126 East Avenue. Okay. So as long as it's 150 feet, it does meet our restrictions.
Okay.
Do you have some idea of how far away the current drive is? Is it about 150 feet from?
I am not sure. I don't know if the applicant can shed additional light on that. I'm not sure how far it is presently, the driveway to that home. I do not know.
Is that speak?
Eric Inyart from Tanner Consulting is here and may be able to answer those types of questions.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. I'm Eric Enyart with Tanner Consulting in Tulsa, 5323 South Lewis Avenue. We did prepare this application on behalf of our client. In response to your specific question, we have well over 300 feet of frontage on the street. We are aware of the 150-foot separation between center lines of drive accesses. And through the PUD process, the PUD you have in front of you, we haven't imposed a restriction that would limit that to one. Without actually being able to give you a precise measurement on where that line was that showed up on the map, I would expect it's at least 150 feet from the center line of the intersection with 126.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Move we approve.
Second. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Yes. Mr. Bonebrake?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 11 is consideration and appropriate action relating to Ordinance 1169, closing for public use a waterline easement at Rejoice Christian Campus located at 13407 East 106th Street North. Carl has this up.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. This involves Ordinance 1169, which is an easement closure on the Rejoice Christian Campus. This Again, the easement is located on the Rejoice School campus and was filed with the Rejoice Christian School plat a few years ago. The total area to be closed is 7,320 square feet. There's a new field house that's being constructed on this area, and the existing easement is actually right underneath where they're proposing the new field house that will house a half a football facility, indoor workout room, restrooms, and other various needs to support their sporting activities in that location. Anyway, that they need to take care of this issue with the easement, so they need to close it. The easement is being relocated to the south, adjacent to the entry driveway, where a 12-inch water line will be installed that will service this facility. Water service in this area is Washington County Rule Number 3, and action on this item is needed by the council because the plat and all the easements associated with the plat were approved by the city council a couple years ago. This is an exhibit that's been provided by the applicant, legal description, if you will, showing the location of the easement. You can see it's a pretty long, skinny easement. And this depicts the easement location in orange, and then the field house. You can kind of see the outline of it here. Will be built essentially on top of this easement. So that is proposed to be closed and then relocated adjacent to this entry driveway at this location. The Technical Advisory Committee did review this item at their May 20th, 2020 meeting. There were no comments or concerns regarding negative impacts to utilities that were expressed at the TAC meeting. And with that, staff would recommend adoption of Ordinance 1169, affirming the easement closure requests. And again, I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Carl, have there anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
As far as the easement being moved, as part of this action, does that automatically move the easement as well, this ordinance?
I don't think it will automatically move it. I still think they have to file a document in the county, likely a separate instrument, on the property to officially create that easement.
Will we have that before us?
No, that's done in the county.
Done in the county. Okay. I'll move we approve.
Second. Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Gombrich?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Yes. Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 12 is consideration and appropriate action relating to the award of the bid for FY 2020 pavement striping project. Larry Escalante.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. Staff prepared the contract document specifications and plans for pavement striping, including bicycle lanes on North 129th East Avenue from 76th Street North to East 96th Street North. With this year's project specifications were added to mimic Oklahoma or ODOT, Oklahoma Department of Transportation, specifications to provide quality control testing for striping materials during and after installation. As established with ODOT specifications, this project includes tiered test result limits that can result in reduced payment amounts or material replacements altogether. Also, an emphasis included in this project is a different striping removal method, including the requirement to repair any pavement joints damaged that should result in less scarring and damage on the concrete roadway surface. In accordance with the Oklahoma Competitive Bidding Act, the notice to bidders was published in the Tulsa World on Wednesday, May 6th, 2020, and Wednesday, May 13th, 2020. In addition, multiple vendors and plan houses were notified of the bidding opportunity. The bid opening occurred on May 28th, 2020, with 2 contractors submitting a bid. A summary of the bid result is included. Refer to the attachment that you have on your bid tabulation. City staff completed the bid evaluations and determined that Road Safe Traffic Systems Incorporated met the bid requirements and is a competent, qualified, and responsible bidder. All bids included a pre-established amount of $10,000 in project allowance to be used only at the city's discretion for any unforeseen cost of potential overrun in quantities. After review of the bids, staff has determined to remove the project allowance, as surface work does not yield much risk and unforeseen cost in comparison to subsurface work. If an overrun of quantities were to occur, it would be handled by a change order. Thus, the contract award amount will be $10,000 less than the bid amounts read aloud at the bid opening and recorded on the bid tabulation. Funding is available in the fiscal year 2019-2020 Streets Division budget. Staff recommends awarding the construction bid to Roadside Safe Traffic Systems Incorporated of Tulsa, Oklahoma, in the amount of $177,726.60 and authorization to execute the necessary documents. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you, Larry. Heather, does anyone sign up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
So Larry, basically you're saying the bid amount will be $10,000 less than that at the end of the project?
Yes, sir.
And so we don't have to worry about that with the bidding. In other words, we don't have to have that rebid or anything like that since it's going to be less.
No.
Okay. And I'm curious on your the point you're making about is it a low impact type of process trying to remove the old striping? Is that the reason why we're pretty confident in that?
What they're doing is it's hydro. It's using water this time. They're going to be a hydro stripping and also be a vacuum system that will be utilized during the stripping process of these lines.
Have we ever had that done before?
No, we have not. We've done, as you notice on Garnett, where we had the aggressive, where they actually dug into the concrete. So this way will be a lot less invasive to the streets.
Right. Is that new technology?
No, it's something they've used. They use it all through the state in different areas. We've just never used it here in the city.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Larry, one thing that caught my attention, that's the margin between the two bids we received. Any explanation or why there was such a big margin between those two?
It's unknown. Sometimes, one thing we did do was we changed our specifications as to the ODOT specifications of contractors for the striping retroreflectivity. So some of that may be more, have never used the water or the hydro, so that they may be subcontracting that out. So that may be a big difference in that as well.
Yeah, kind of on the same, a little bit on the same lines what Councilor Dunn was talking about. Is it normal just to only have a couple of people bid?
Yes.
That project?
Well, there's, right now there's so many projects going across the state that if, they've got some slow work or they want to get here close. So.
Okay. I'll move we approve.
Second.
Mr. Bonebreak?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis? Yes. Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 13 is consideration and appropriate action relating to an agreement for the relocation of utilities for the East 116th Street North and North 129th East Avenue intersection improvements. Roy Henderson will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, for the exhibit for the intersection above. As you know, we are getting ready to start another project here in Owasso. The intersection of 116th Street North and 129th East Avenue has been bid and let and awarded by the Department of Transportation. All utilities that have been moved, all private utilities have been moved at this time. All right-of-way has been secured. The only utility lacking to be relocated is water for Washington County Water District Number 3. In the past, we've always relocated water lines with the pavement construction due to the fact we get better prices with larger contracts. And this project will be done the same way. We have developed an agreement between Rural Water District 3 and ourselves, as you've approved in the past, where we relocate their lines for them at our cost. And if they ask for any betterments to that line, larger size line than what was currently there, then they would pay the difference in the betterment. On this particular project, there were no betterments requested, so we're just paying for the straight relocation for this project. This particular project was actually a collaboration between ODOT, Tulsa County, and ourselves. Tulsa County and the City of Owasso will actually relocate the utilities 100%, but at 50% apiece. So the estimated, or the actual bid for the relocation for this project is $258,000. Of that, $129,000 will be paid for by Tulsa County, and also $129,000 will be paid for by the City of Owasso. The money for this project was already added, given to ODOT in escrow, so there's no additional funds needed to be added to the project. So these funds are already set aside part of the project. The agreement tonight has already been approved by Rural Water District number 3 a couple weeks ago at their council meeting on the 8th of June. And I do have a copy of that to give to Heather after this meeting. Tonight, the purpose of our meeting tonight, or this item tonight, is to enter into that agreement with them. Requires a vote of the council to approve this agreement. The funding, as I mentioned, has already been set aside with the Department of Transportation. So at this time, if you have any, I hope you have some questions about this, but my recommendation to you tonight is staff recommends approval of the utility relocation agreement with Washington County Rural Water District number 3 pertaining to the widening of East 160th Street North and North 129th East Avenue, improvements and authorization to execute the agreement. As I said, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dwayne. Heather's decided to speak on this item.
No, sir.
Questions, comments from the council?
Can you give me an example of what a betterment would be? Would it be like a larger water line or
Yes, sir.
something like that?
Good example is our coming project that's going to be coming up to you here in about a month. It's 106th and 145th. There's a series of 6-inch lines at that intersection that Rural Water District currently has, and they will actually, the agreement with them on that project will actually have betterments. They're going to upgrade all those lines around the intersection to 12 inches because that's what their water model says that they need to have at that location. So we'll pay for the price of a 6-inch line relocation, and the difference in between the two, they'll make the difference up in that. But in this particular location, they felt their line sizes were adequate for the future and didn't need to be upsized.
Okay. Thank you.
Dwayne, this is just the agreement with the Rural Water District. Will we see the agreement with Tulsa County as far as the split on the costs?
But there already is a interlocal agreement that's been approved several years ago regarding utility relocation. We actually started that back when we first started working with AT&T. We've relocated about 5 or 6 utilities, and that same agreement applies to all the utilities.
Yeah, I guess it's ODOT that pays the bill. Basically, we're just depositing it into the.
Yes, sir. With the construction projects, actually the roadway, they're paying for 80% of the funds, and Tulsa County ourselves are each paying 10% of those of the roadway funds. But since this is the utilities are not considered an inclusive part of the project, and they require the local entities to pay for utilities, we've paired up and are funding 50% of that apiece. So that's why the split there is 50-50.
Thank you.
Member approved.
Second.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Item 14, consideration of appropriate action relating to the acquisition of right-of-way and easement for the East 116th Street North from Mingo to Garnett Roadway Improvement Project. Steve will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and City Council. The item I bring before you this evening is a request to authorize payment for 5,706.3 square feet of right-of-way and 13,285.80 square feet of permanent easement from the Joyanne Biggs Revocable Living Trust for the East 116th Street North Widening Project from Mingo to Garnett Road. The offer for right-of-way is $2 per square foot for a purchase price of $11,400. In addition to the right-of-way cost, the compensation for easement in the amount of $16,369 is included for a total offer of $27,769. Funding for the purchase is available in the project budget from the Vision Recapture Fund. With this information in mind, staff recommends authorization for payment in the amount of $27,769 to the Joyanne Biggs Revocable Living Trust for the acquisition of right-of-way easement located at 9727 East 116th Street North. At this time, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Roger. Heather's in on the sign to speak on this item.
No, sir.
Questions, comments from the council?
Move we approve.
Second. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 15 is consideration of appropriate action relating to a budget amendment for coronavirus aid relief and economic security, CARES Act reimbursement. Linda Jones will present this item.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council. The City of Owasso is eligible to receive coronavirus federal aid. It is to cover unbudgeted expenses, however, related to the COVID-19 pandemic. To be eligible for reimbursement, the expenses could not have been included in the governmental entity's budget as of March 1st. However, because state statutes require that city expenses be budgeted, a budget amendment is necessary to cover these unanticipated expenses. Federal funds through the CARES Act are anticipated to be received on a reimbursement basis for the direct COVID-19 expenses. So tonight, staff recommends approval of a budget amendment in the general fund, increasing the estimated revenue and the appropriation for expenditures in the amount of $490,000. And I would be happy to answer any questions that any counselor would have.
Thank you, Linda. Others, anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
I think you went over this last week, Linda, but just to confirm in my mind, so what we're gonna be doing is putting together the list of COVID-related expenses that we have. We'll be submitting it and getting reimbursement for that. Is that the way it works?
We already submitted a list of anticipated expenses, and they started having us, as of the 1st of this month, submit requests for reimbursement. So we haven't received those funds yet, but we're going to be asked to submit monthly the actual expenses for the month. So this budget amendment would be for the total amount that we've estimated so far that we would have eligible for reimbursement. Now, as we go along, it could be that our expenses are higher or lower. If they turn out to be higher and they are eligible for additional reimbursement, we would come back to council for another budget amendment. So this is an estimate at this time. No one knows how the pandemic is going to affect us in the future, but this will cover us legally for the process that we're in right now.
Very good, thank you.
Just to clarify, this estimate of the $490,000, that's what we're just estimating would be the total cost that we've incurred so far, or through a certain date?
That's an excellent question. Those would be the estimated costs through the end of December, and that's the period covered by the legislation that's currently being implemented. So, you know, we don't know what might happen in that long period of time.
And generally, what kind of expenses are these? Are they personnel expenses?
There are some personnel expenses if we have somebody working primarily on COVID. It's not just an hour here or there, but actually they're coordinating our response. That salary cost would be included. But most of the cost is related to our supplies, our PPE equipment and supplies that were needed, that we didn't anticipate we would need last year. Normally we might buy a case of disinfectant wipes, and now we may be buying a case a week. You know, it's just dramatically more than what we would normally budget for a year.
Thank you.
Our salaries are factored into that. Yeah. I'll move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bonbray?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 16 is consideration of appropriate action relating to a budget amendment for fiscal year end supplemental appropriations of excess sales tax revenue, and Linda Jones will present this item.
I'm very pleased to say that our sales tax collections for the year exceeded our budget. That was in spite of the impact of the coronavirus over the last couple months. But we did exceed our budget that we had adopted. We were conservative when we set it back last year. And so as a consequence, the general fund sales tax collections for the year total approximately $26.6 million, which is more than the budgeted revenue. Due to the excess sales tax revenue in the general fund, the sales tax is required to be transferred to and from the OPWA Trust Authority. And that's because our sales tax, 3 cents of our sales tax is obligated for our bond debt. And so we transfer it to the Trust Authority, we make our bond payments, and then the balance is transferred back out, 2 cents to the general fund and 1 cent to the capital improvements fund, as is dictated by the ordinance. So budget amendments in the amount of $566,410 are now required to allow for the transfer of those unexpected revenues and to ensure compliance with the voter-approved sales tax ordinance. So tonight, staff recommends approval of a budget amendment in the general fund, increasing the estimated revenue and the appropriation for expenditures by $566,410. And I would be happy to answer questions you have pertaining to this.
Thank you, Linda. Heather, is anyone to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
Just comment to agree with Linda. It's a blessing that we even have excess of our sales tax revenues for this year after what we've gone through the last few months. So that's the only way to count it. And I'm glad we have it. I move we approve.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Bonebrake?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 17 is consideration and appropriate action relating to Resolution 2020-14, providing for the adoption of an annual budget for fiscal year 2020-2021, general fund and other funds, and establishing budget amendment authority as provided by the state statute. Lynn Jones will present this item.
Pursuant to statutory and charter provisions, an annual operating budget for the general fund and other funds has been developed and was transmitted for City Council review on May 12th of this year. The proposed budget was discussed during the May and June City Council work sessions. Printed copies of the budget have been made available for public viewing at City Hall and on the city's website. Resolution 2020-14 provides for the adoption of a fiscal year budget for the city of Owasso, Oklahoma. On May 27, 2020, a legal notice of a public hearing was published in the Owasso Reporter, and such hearing was conducted on June 2nd of this month. The public hearing provided opportunity for citizen comment and questions relating to the proposed budget. There were no citizen comments provided at that hearing. Tonight, staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-14, adopting a fiscal year 2020-2021 budget totaling $82,314,103 for the general fund and other funds as established by the Owasso City Council. And it'd be my pleasure to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Linda. Heather's excited to speak on this item.
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
I know you've gone through this with us the last couple of months, Linda, and again, I think it's always worth noting that it's becoming easier, better process of trying to evaluate a budget based on the way it's presented, the way that you and your staff have put this together. Grateful for that. It's I've been doing this a little while now, and I've seen this process just continually improve, and grateful for your efforts and you and your staff's efforts to make that happen. And I think, Warren, I know you've touched on it as well, that, you know, this is kind of more or less our guide that we're hoping to work by over the next year. And you brought it up that if things change, we will make adjustments to handle that change. And I have confidence in that. We've done it in the past, and I'm comfortable we'll continue to do it. And so good job on this budget, and looking forward to adopting it.
We approve.
Second.
Mr. Bonebrake?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 18 is consideration of appropriate action relating to the renewal of the Master Services Agreement with First Responder Support Services, FRSS, for professional behavioral health services, and Michelle Dempster will present this.
Mayor and City Council, the item I have before you this evening is a renewal of the agreement between First Responder Support Services, FRSS, and the City of Owasso. In July 2017, the City of Owasso entered into an agreement with First Responder Support Services for behavioral health services for emergency responders. The fiscal year-to-date statistics through May 2020 reflect a continued increase in usage of services, with 45 active clients, 18 of which were new participants, for a total of 263 direct service hours. More detailed statistics are at your place, comparing prior years of services to this year. In addition to providing ongoing counseling, FRSS has provided 70 hours of combined training to the police and fire departments. The cost of continuing services for fiscal year 2021 is $39,238.80, which has been included in the fiscal year 2021 budgets for the police department half-penny sales tax fund and the fire department half-penny sales tax fund. This is a $7,548 increase in cost. FRSS based this increase on a calculation using a formula that brings into balance the City of Owasso's utilization consistent with overall FRSS budget. FRSS has committed to this rate for the next 3 years. Approval of the third renewal agreement with FRSS will continue the following services: unlimited number of hours of self-referred counseling services for paramedics, police officers, dispatchers, animal control officers, and their immediate family members. Up to 55 hours of education and/or training services per department annually. Consultative services, including but not limited to critical incident and peer support teams. I realize this memo comes across as sterile as buying a vehicle, but this contract is also about relationships and trust, and the relationship the emergency service employees have built with the FRSS and the trust we have in working with them. What the annual reports don't show is the heart of the service, and that during just some add-ons that aren't kind of included in the annual report, during the initial weeks of the pandemic, FRSS created what they referred to as Monday messages, sharing tips on managing stress and uncertainty and other relevant topics to be distributed each week. Each year they sit down with the chiefs and I and plan the training for the year. It's not just topics they come up with. We sit down and discuss options together. And they are continually available for reviewing promotional messages or anything we want to send out to the departments promoting their services, which we do ongoing. So I believe there's really no way to quantify the impact the services have made, but the stats try to do that, and they do show an increase in services. So with that, staff recommends approval of the third renewal agreement with the First Responder Support Services in the amount of $39,238.80 and authorization to execute the agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michelle. Others who want to sign to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
Michelle, how many employees or how many employees do they provide as far as on the service end of things? Do we have multiple counselors, multiple?
Yes, and actually, I don't think it's been released yet, but they're getting ready to add additional because they've signed it with another entity. So yes, there are multiple. Right now, I think they're at 4, but that's in 4 or 5, and they're increasing the number because of adding on another entity.
That just shows that demand is continues to increase.
Yes, I'm excited about the entity that's going to be adding on.
Great. It's the training aspect of it's what's impressive to me. I know the counseling is important. There's no question, but when you can get groups together and train better ways of handling certain circumstances, I think that's a huge benefit, I think, in addition to any of the counseling services. So it's great. I think you guys have a good thing going here.
Yes, sir.
Well, I think it's also important to note, I mean, I think statistics, which you compare this out, the number of suicides has gone up tremendously this year as far as first responders, because of everything that's gone on. Having a program like this, I don't know that you can put a value on it. It's an invaluable program, so I'm really glad we started this a few years back.
Yes, me too.
Michelle, I noticed this report here on usage. Can you just briefly tell us what these 3 different tables are trying to reflect for us?
Yes. So the first table, the intakes, these are new individuals. So if you look at 2017-18, that's the year we put the service in place. So we started the year with 0, and then it accumulates. So those aren't the number of people each month. So cumulative for that first fiscal year, 35 new individuals, which basically that year everybody was new. The second year in July, 2 new individuals with a total of 20 for the fiscal year. And then through May of the current fiscal year, we've had 18 new individuals who had never been to FRS before seek services. The second chart is a cumulative clients. So once again, 2017-18 starts at 0, and then it accrues through each month. So 35 for the first fiscal year is the total number of clients that have gone in at least once or multiple times. And then the 18-19 fiscal year, a total of 42 individuals, and then 19-20, a total of 45 through May. And then the third chart on the bottom half of the page is the direct services. So this is actually hours spent counseling. In the first fiscal year, in 17-18, the total for the whole fiscal year is 189 hours. Then 18-19 was 259 hours, and through May of this fiscal year, 263 hours.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 19 is consideration of appropriate action relating to the ratification of the second year of the current employment agreement between the city and city manager Warren Lear for fiscal year 2020-2021. Michelle Dempster will present this.
Yes, an executive session for the purpose of discussing the annual employment evaluation and personnel matters of the city manager Warren Lear was conducted by the city council. Mr. Lear's current employment agreement includes language to continue the employment agreement for a second year effective July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2021 with no changes. Presented for your consideration is the second year of the 2-year employment agreement between the city manager and the city. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michelle. Others want to sign up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
I'll move we approve.
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 20 is consideration of appropriate action relating to an employment agreement between the city and city attorney Julie Lombardi. Michelle Dempster will present this item.
Subsequent to an executive session for the purpose of discussing the annual employment evaluation and personnel matters of the city attorney, Julie Lombardi, a proposed employment agreement was developed. The proposed agreement is effective July 1, 2020, and contains language that continues the employment agreement into fiscal year 2021-2022, contingent upon city council approval of funding through the budget process for the second year. Other than date changes, there were no other changes to the employment agreement. Presented for your consideration is an employment agreement between the city and the city attorney, Julie Lombardi. Outside attorney Keith Wilkes has reviewed the proposed employment agreement. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michelle. Others want to sign up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
Appreciate all your service to us, Julie. It means a lot.
Ditto.
And I will say that I appreciate both of you guys. I mean, before we even went into discussion, you'd already told us, or we'd already been let know that you both said we don't even want to talk about any type of pay increase or anything. That just, to me, speaks a lot to your character, and I really, especially because of we don't know what the budget's going to be, we don't know what the funds are going to be, and you guys both just stepped up and just said, don't even worry about it. Really appreciate the character that shows through both of you.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 21 is consideration of appropriate action relating to the appointment of citizens to various city boards and committees, and I've got this item. All but 2 actually are everyone on these committees: the Audit Committee, the Board of Adjustment, Capital Improvements Committee, Owasso, Economic Development Authority, Personnel Board, Planning Commission, INCOG Transportation Policy Committee, INCOG Transportation Technical Committee, and the Regional Metropolitan Utility Authority. 2 new people that have stepped up and have said that they would serve as Keith Whitfield on the Capital Improvements Committee. And then on the Planning Commission is Nick Keela. He is also, said he would serve on the Planning Commission, and everybody else, like I said, is just continuing to serve. For the past, they've all have agreed to do so. And just say that we're thankful for these people that they get paid the same amount of money we do to do this type of stuff. I mean, you look down this list of people, you know, I know just about every one of them, and it's just people that love and care for this city, and they want to just do what they can to try to contribute to continue moving the city forward, and just their oversight. And I really appreciate their volunteering to do so.
Well said. So I'll move we approve.
Second.
Mr. Bumbright,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Bush.
Yes. Item 22 is report from city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of items to highlight. This Saturday, registered voters will have one more opportunity to have absentee ballots notarized for the June 30th primary and state question election using a drive-through notary station. This will be at the West City Hall parking lot. This is under the direction of the Rogers County Election Board and locally here coordinated by our city clerk, Julie Stevens. Had good turnout the previous 2 Saturdays in the neighborhood of 30 to 50 people who have taken advantage of this, and expect the same on this last Saturday that will be available. Again, thank you to Julie Dermody and the Rogers County Election Board, Julie Stevens, Janet Jackson, Shelley Wingert, and other volunteer notaries who are making this possible on Saturdays for our voters. This past Thursday, the 2020 Owasso Economic Summit was held as a Zoom webinar. For those of you that had the opportunity to listen, Dr. Mark Sneed delivered a fairly positive report for Owasso, while acknowledging that the next several months are really a complete unknown. He was predicting more or less a steep but relatively short decline. And so far, our sales tax collections have sort of borne that out. We've been fortunate, as Councilor Bonebrake mentioned, that we're ending the year in a surplus mode, and hopefully we will continue on with a fairly positive revenue collections from sales tax. Just saw today that nationwide in May, retail sales were up 17.7%. That's obviously in conjunction with a lot of states reopening retail, but we'll continue to hope and pray for the best there. It is total unknown as far as what might happen with coronavirus and other measures that need to be taken as a result of anything that could happen there, but we will again continue to hope and pray for the best. It was an excellent report. Dr. Sneed always does a great job, and I believe that report is available online, and that's correct. Just a couple of other things. The grand opening of the Redbud Festival Park will take place on Thursday, July 2nd, in conjunction with the first gathering on Main. There will be a ceremony, I believe that's at 6 o'clock, that several of you will be involved in. And we are also planning the city's annual fireworks display, Red, White, and Boom, that is being planned for the 4th of July, which is on a Saturday this year. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Warren. Item 23 is report from the city attorney.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Item 24 is report from city councilors.
Congratulations, Mayor Bush and Vice Mayor Lewis. Looking forward to your leadership. Thank you very much. And well, just to acknowledge Warren, thank you for all you've done for us up to this point. And looking forward to you leading us for a while longer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 25 is official notices of council. We are in receipt of these documents. Item 26 is new business. Hearing none, I'll have a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. I'd like to now call to order this meeting of the Owasso Public Works Authority. Roll call.
Chair Chris Kelly?
Here.
Vice Chair Bill Bush?
Here.
Trustee Doug Bumbrick?
Here.
Trustee Lyndall Dunn?
Here.
Trustee Kelly Lewis?
Here.
Do this again. Item number 3 is election of the OPWA chair. And,
Chris should be running.
yeah, I'm sorry. I guess you should be
I
running the
still be
OPWA.
running
Sorry
this,
about
yeah. Okay. So item number 3 is election of the OPWA chair. Didn't we do this though in the first meeting? I nominated for mayor and chair of the authorities.
So we're gonna let our legal.
No, normally what we do is combine those 3 meetings. That's what we've always done in the past when it's time for the mayoral election. But tonight with so many individual items for each meeting, we weren't able to do that. So we actually have to go through the process of each of the 3 entities in the election.
So have we actually called to order since it was me instead of Chris that called the order?
Well, let's assume that he can just ratify that with,
I mean, you did a good job.
Oh, thank you.
So on that note, so I will nominate Bill Bush as chair of the Owasso Public Works Authority.
Second?
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Now I'll take over. Item number 4, I will elect vice chair, or for the vice chair, Councilor Kelly Lewis.
Second.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 5 is consideration of appropriate action relating to the request for approval of the consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 7 is consideration of appropriate action relating to a budget amendment in the Owasso Public Works Authority Fund for fiscal year end supplemental appropriations of excess sales tax revenue, and Linda Jones will present this item.
This item is a companion item to the one earlier approved by City Council. As was needed in the general fund, a budget amendment for the increased sales tax in order for it to transfer to the trust authority. Now, in order to transfer those same sales tax revenues back, an amendment is needed in the trust authority. So tonight, staff recommends approval of a budget amendment in the Owasso Public Works Authority Fund, increasing the estimated revenue and the appropriation for expenditures by $566,410. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Linda. Heather, does anyone sign up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
Move we approve.
Second.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item 8 is consideration and appropriate action relating to Resolution 2020-04, providing for the adoption of an annual budget for fiscal year 2020-2021.
This item is also a companion item to an item earlier approved by council. Revised Resolution 2020-04 provides for the adoption of a fiscal year 2021 budget for the Owasso Public Works Authority totaling $44,758,931. Staff recommends approval of Resolution 2020-04 adopting a fiscal year 2020-21 budget for the OPWA fund, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Linda. Heather, does anyone signed up to speak on this item?
No, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
Second.
Mr. Bumbrick?
Yes.
Ms. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mr. Bush?
Yes. Item number 10 is report from the OPWA manager. Oh, I'm sorry, skipped one here. Item number 9, consideration of appropriate action relating to an agreement for engineering design services for the Recycle Center expansion project. And Dwayne Henderson will present this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I appreciate the confidence in making me the new project or the OPWA manager.
Yeah, there you go.
Tonight I bring before you an agreement for engineering services to provide design for an expansion of the Owasso Recycle and Convenience Center. As you know, we down south on South Fifth Avenue, we have a recycle center and convenience center that's been a successful endeavor for the city of Owasso for the past 30 years. People have been able to bring in all kinds of recyclables down there, as well as dispose of things that are too large for the polycarts. And city staff has been geared toward helping those citizens out. And in the past few years, we've experienced about 17,000 customers annually at that site, both taking new recyclables and dropping off items at the convenience center. On any given Saturday, however, you may see as many as 600 customers come through there. I myself have visited the site on a Saturday, and I think I counted all 600 of them. Since the center served the purpose of the residents to dispose of recyclables and large waste items, things tend to get overwhelmed pretty quickly. A few years ago, we did a solid waste master plan where we looked at moving a larger facility to the south of the existing facility, but the cost for that center was quite high, and we started looking at other options. Before that master plan was prepared, staff had developed a plan to possibly move a expansion to the recycle center to the west of the current site. A sketch that was prepared 10, 15 years ago is up on the screen, which is you can see by the existing recycle center, convenience center here now. This is where customers come in, they come in here, come around, and then exit the door here. Another idea was to add a 24-hour recycle center, which staff could come in, or excuse me, customers could come in any hours of the day, come in and dispose of the recyclables in these polycarts, or not polycarts, I'm sorry, drop-off boxes. And then once they dropped off everything, they could pull out and leave. And this was an idea that was thought of a long time ago, and we decided to dust that idea off since we are experiencing so much more customer numbers out there. Staff did put some money in the budget last year in the OPWA fund to actually start it off by doing some preliminary design work, doing some geotechnical work on soils out there, as well as doing initial surveys. At this time, staff has already provided, or has already contracted a surveying company to provide the surveys. We've had geotechnical testing holes already taken. The next step is to get an engineer on board. We have visited with and have worked with Brian Casement of Casement Engineering LLC in the past. Brian does a lot of small site developments in Owasso right now, and we thought he might be really qualified and lends good ideas for the expansion of the recycle center. Part of the scope of services that we have proposing a contract with him is to attend pre-development meeting with staff and prepare at least 3 site plan options for this. This may be one of those we look at pretty highly since we've put some thought into it, but we have 2 other options that we're going to look at as well. We're going to contract with him to look at 3 options. He will look at pavement orientation, ingress and egress to the site, fencing recommendations, roll-off box orientation, also some security and site lighting to make sure that everybody's safe even in the evening hours down there. Once a preliminary site plan, or a conceptual plan, we'll call it, has been approved, then we'll look at preliminary design, final design, and also look at putting together some bid specifications. They'll also help us with permits through FEMA, since that site is in the 100-year floodplain. And then it's at a future date, we would look at bidding the project, since the project is not intended to be funded until fiscal year 21 and 22. Funding is available at this time through the OPWA fund under the Recycle Center operations budget. At this time, staff recommends approval of the agreement for engineering services for design of the Recycle Center expansion project with Casement Engineering LLC of Sand Springs, Oklahoma, in the amount of $39,650, and authorization to execute the agreement. And as always, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Dwayne, and you're really not the Heather's anyone signed up to speak on this?
No, sir.
Questions, comments from council?
So Dwayne, I gotta ask, even though this is an old design, do you know what the rain garden is?
The rain garden was initially set up for catching debris, trash that might blow down into that area. It was also going to help provide detention that we were going to need at the site. But since this initial sketch was put together, we determined that it's not probably apropos to put detention this close to Bird Creek. We'd actually want the water to get out quickly and not detain it. So that's a 10 to 15-year-old sketch there. That's a remnant item that probably would be deleted.
So that's likely to go away.
Yes, sir.
Well, no, I agree with you 100%. This is way overdue. We need to expand that area. It's very difficult sometimes to get in and out of our existing recycle center, depending on how many people is there. And having a one-way in and one-way out, sometimes the traffic gets stacked up. And so I'm looking forward to moving this along. Any ideas of what it may end up costing us down the road to make this?
Actually, earlier today, Roger and I were discussing it. We were looking at the $250,000 to $300,000 range. Try to keep it pretty conservative.
Will the engineer help us with those numbers?
Yes, sir.
Settle that.
And we intend, I mean, do you think that the end result will probably mean that we would still use our existing site? We'll try to incorporate it all.
Yes, sir. I believe that'd be more of a convenience center where people could come and drop off big items and roll off buses. And others who want to recycle can actually do that on their own. They don't require our supervision from our employees. They can go out and drop off as they need to and then take off. Like I said, any time of day.
It's good news. Thanks.
So I have a question with regards to that. So in your description, I think you described this new area that people will be able to come 24/7 and just drop off. Is there any concern that people will bypass, paying for it, and then when they go through the after hours, will dump inappropriately?
We discussed that as well, and of course we'd have to look at it and see how it goes without it being manned. If it doesn't work well and our cameras pick up people doing illegal activity, we may have to shorten the time frame up as far as evening hours. But we want to give it a shot and give people an opportunity to utilize the 24-hour services.
Yeah, I'm hopeful that it will work. I mean, it's a great idea if it does work that way. I just, out of Bailey Elementary, got all those dumpsters there. I think a lot of Owassans, a lot of times, in a lot of situations, but they don't behave very well there very often. So I don't know what the preemptive solution is, but I guess when talking about the design process, incorporating as many elements as possible to ensure that
we'll have security cameras up.
Yeah.
If somebody does something illegal, we can determine who that is and get it stopped.
Yeah, perfect.
So is most of the side of the new side, is that gonna be for recycle, and you're still gonna keep maybe the old portion or the existing portion for the large actually dump trash?
That's right. We'd like to make this the entire recycle center itself, and then use this as the convenience center for people to drive up here and drop off large items. Like you said, it couldn't fit in the waste baskets.
Yeah, because like Doug said, I've not been there during the weekends. That is a optimal place. And I can see that being a great advantage to having more of the roll-offs available. So it does flow.
Even with the 24-hour idea, we'll still have staff going there probably once a day, right?
Yes, sir. It'll have the out clean up. I'm sure things will get dropped on the ground and things like that. Somebody will need help unloading something. The guys do a really good job of helping the customers. I'm sure they won't lack to come over there as well.
That's probably the biggest distinction I can make between what we'll have here and what you see out at Bailey. I don't think you're going to see as many people from, I think it's American Waste Control, to come by there every day to see people doing that kind of stuff. But anyway, it's a good point.
Yeah, I have no doubts we'll do that.
Dwayne, just in conjunction with what Chris said, are you familiar with other cities that do 24-hour recycling?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
Are you familiar with other cities that do 24-hour recycling?
I'm not familiar with other cities. Roger, Travis might know of some. I don't know of any. Now, in Claremore, where I live, on the northeast side of Claremore, it's open all the time. but it's not manned either, so kind of hard to compare those two.
I think Collinsville, I thought they were 24 hours.
Maybe, I don't know, I'm sorry.
Is there a reason to go past the 5 o'clock hours? Is it just like people get off work, and the only time they have it is after that they
That was help spread out some of the load of the people coming. I know a lot of people recycle. I've been there and watched a lot of people recycle. I'm impressed by how many come.
It's a great idea to have the 20, I mean, I can't tell how many times I've wanted to dump something on the Sunday. You know, it's like, that's the only time you have to do it. So it will be utilized a lot.
Yeah, I just hope it's utilized correctly.
Yeah,
Like I said,
that's my
people
biggest
don't
concern.
think it's a free place to go and just start out. They shouldn't just start.
Yeah.
Right.
Move we approve.
Second. Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes. Item 10 is a report from the true OPWA manager.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Item 11 is a report from the OPWA attorney.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Item 12 is official notices authority. We are in receipt of these documents. Item 13 is new business. Hearing none, I'd like to have a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Now call to order this meeting of the Owasso Public Golf Authority. Item number 2 is roll call.
Chair Chris Kelly,
Here.
Vice Chair Bill Bush,
Here.
Trustee Doug Bonfrey,
Here.
Trustee Wendell Dunn,
Here.
Trustee Kelly Lewis,
Item 3 is election of the OPGA chair. I would like to nominate Councilor Bush as chair of the authority.
Second.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Item 4 is election of the OPGA vice chair, and I would like to nominate Kelly Lewis as the vice chair.
Second.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes. Item 5 is consideration and appropriate action relating to a request for approval of the consent agenda.
Move approve.
Second.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes. Item 7 is consideration and appropriate action relating to resolution 2020-01, providing for the adoption of the annual budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. Linda Jones will present this item.
I'm pleased to tell you this is the final step in adopting the fiscal 2021 budget for the year. And so resolution 2020-01 provides for the adoption of a fiscal year 2021 budget for the Owasso Public Golf Authority totaling $1,496,603. Staff recommends approval of resolution 2020-01 adopting a fiscal year 2021 budget for the OPGA fund, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Linda. Heather, does anyone sign up to speak on this item?
no, sir.
Questions or comments from the council?
Can we make a motion where Linda can just say what I said before? Same thing.
Ditto, it's called ditto.
Move we approve.
Second.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes. Report from the OPGA manager.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Item 9 is report from the OPGA attorney.
No report, Mr. Chairman.
Item number 10 is official notices to the authority. We are in receipt of these documents. Item 11 is new business. Hearing none, I'd like a motion for an adjournment.
Second.
Mr. Bonfrey,
Yes.
Ms. Lewis,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Bush,
Yes.